The advice provided in this podcast is general in nature. For your specific situation, you will need to get in contact with your local OT, vehicle modifier or mobility dealer and set yourself up with an assessment or a trial. Trials really do put you in the driver's seat, so get out there and get one going. Before we get started, we just want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors who make this show possible: Mobility Engineering, Driving Well, and Williams OT. This show takes time and money to put together, and we are forever grateful for their passion for our industry. Okay, enough of the business. Let's get on to the interview.
G'day and welcome to the DriveAble Podcast. I'm Brad Williams from Williams OT in South Australia, and I'm doing it alone today. There's no Ali, there's no Jenny sitting by me from Mobility Engineering or Driving Well. Hey, I'm doing this one alone because Jed is a very busy man. I'm talking with Jed Altschwager today, who is an Order of Australia medal winner for his Paralympic successes. So Jed, in 2015, lost his left foot in an accident involving an excavator at work. And part of his rehabilitation process, he got really fit and was identified as a rowing talent. And then in 2017 into 2018, he was identified as a real prospect for winning a gold medal, and just recently has won a gold medal at the Paris Paralympics. So can't wait to get him on. That was in the PR3 mixed double sculls, and he's also a dual silver and gold medalist winner at the World Rowing Champs. So he comes with us with a lot of talent, but we're going to talk to him about his journey and where driving was involved in that. So look out for that coming up on the other side of our little intro here. But we're also going to be talking to him about his new role. He's a talent identifying scout for the upcoming Paralympics at LA and Brisbane. Pretty exciting stuff. So we're going to talk to him about his new role. And if you're looking at us on YouTube, how you could get involved in Paralympics as outlined on that poster behind me there. So imagine what we can do by bringing you this interview with Jed on the other side of this intro. Can't wait.
Mobility Engineering is Australia's leading automotive product supplier for disability customers. We have installers all across the country, over 100 of them, and we have the largest range of mobility products for vehicles in the country. Get in touch with Mobility Engineering for any of your driving solutions.
Hey everybody, I'm really excited to get into today's interview. As you heard in the introduction, today we are talking with Jed Altschwager, who's a Paralympic gold medal winning rower. Jed, how are you?
I'm very good, Brad. Thanks to you for having me.
Oh, no problems at all. Thanks very much for coming on board. Now, I did a little intro in before the ad and told a little bit about your background, but you know, as you might know, that's probably off of Wikipedia. So I'm going to ask you to unpack a little bit about who you are, and also about, if disability is the right word, a bit about your disability as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll start probably a little bit closer to home. I'm a father, married with a father to two young kids who I'm home today, and I'm home with them. So you might get the odd pop in. We'll see how that goes. So I'm 38 years old. I'm currently working in the South Australian Sports Institute in para talent ID in this new basically para uplift. But if we rewind about 10 years ago, I was involved in a workplace accident. So I was 28. I worked in civil construction, loved what I did. I was kind of the outdoorsy type, surfed. Probably didn't have a really big connection to fitness or my body. Fitness wasn't part of my regime or anything like that. But when I was involved in an excavator rollover and crush injury resulting my left leg being amputated below the knee, it really sparked a pretty deep learning in me around the importance of my body, and that really put me on a really great positive path of growth and gratitude and learnings. And yeah, found myself, the first gym I ever stepped foot in as a 28-year-old was a rehab gym at the Repat, and to be able to then sort of fast forward and become an elite athlete and be paid to do it, it's a pretty incredible journey. So yeah, I spent, that was me. That was obviously a massive thing to go through for me and my family, my wife. We didn't have kids at the time, so was able to really focus on the rehab side of things mentally and physically. And that brought me to a point probably about 18 months down the track after my injury. Like I said, I really dove into the fitness industry and personal growth stuff, and fell in love with CrossFit, and I was training in that every day. And I love that as a modality of training. And it was at that point, I remember it was just at some stage, like not doing anything too crazy, but I do remember just sort of thinking to myself, like, in a really good place, and just thinking how far I can go with this, how far I can push this. And that was really when the seed was first planted of representing your country at the Paralympic Games. Which was around 2017. So, yeah.
So you're at the CrossFit gym, and
Yep.
you probably had a choice between the ski erg and the rowing machine or something like that.
Yep.
And you chose that the rowing machine was something that you were actually kicking everyone else's butt in, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing okay. I guess, like I said, there was no like connection at that point between like what I was doing and the Paralympics. It was enjoying my daily routine now of training every day and thinking I was fit, getting fitter, all of that sort of stuff. And it was really only once I kind of was in this sort of really big gratitude space of like, wow, look how much I've grown and all the opportunities that have come because of what I've been through. That's when the seed planted around rowing and around Paralympic Games and representing my country. And then it was a conversation with it was like any story, and it kind of ties back to what I'm doing now in a way, around sort of lowering the barriers to entry to para sport. It was just through a connection that I had. So luckily enough, my brother knew the CEO of Paralympics Australia at the time. She kind of kept tabs on me through my brother, just saying, if and when Jed's ever ready, let's connect it. And it just so happened I was. My brother connected a phone call. So lucky in a way, whether or not I would have found it or not, I don't know, but connected a phone call to Tim Matthews, who's a Paralympian in his own right, very successful, and he's a Paralympic scout as well as many other things. So I had a conversation with him, and he saw a video of me on the erg, and we just got talking, and it was my love of water that really attracted me to rowing. To be honest, it was my love of water and surfing, being around. I live in the western suburbs of Adelaide, and it was also the location. I was like, well, West Lakes is 7 minutes away, so let's start there and see how we go.
So you made this phone call.
Yep.
You got connected with this scout. You went down and joined up at a club and saw what would happen next. Is that kind of that snowballed, or what?
Basically,
what happened?
So he was like, we kind of had a plan. Like I was no spring chicken. I wasn't old, but at 28, it's and I'm learning now again back in the role that I'm at now. Probably at around that age, you need somewhat of a plan. You can be a little broader as younger you are, but my plan was cool. Let's have a look at rowing or kayak. They were both at West Lakes, both on the water. And then it was just, again, it's like fate or the way things happen. It's like, he just goes, well, the head rowing coach from Canberra is coming down to see a couple of other athletes like next weekend. Do you want to meet up with Gordo? And I was like, yeah, cool. So again, I meet up with him at West Lakes, and we have a great conversation. I connect with him really well. And over the years, he'd become, somewhat of a mentor and probably even now a really great friend. And so it was just like that moment in time that kind of was like, I remember I met with him, and it was like, okay, what does it look like? Illuminating the pathway a little bit. And again, oddly enough, now I'm talking to you, it's kind of what I'm doing now, trying to do now, to help illuminate the pathway. And for me, he sat me down, and it was like, okay, what does it look like? All right, Jed, join a club, develop through the winter. There's a couple of key stakeholders in the state that you'll get to know, or I'll introduce you to along the, And so that's what we did. I joined a club, joined Torrens Rowing Club, who support the para sort of development stuff down here, or at least they did. And that's kind of how it started. And then I do remember going, look, in my head, I was like, I'll give this 6, 9 months, maybe 12 months. And if I don't see this a possibility, then like I'm happy, I'll go somewhere else. And I'll try and find another sport that I click better with. And there's so many nuances to para sport. Like, I've come in late. Sometimes your impairment depicts on whether you're competitive or not in a certain class. And so all of that I actually didn't know organically at the start. It's just you find it out along your journey. And so anyway, rowing, and then it just so happened that within the first sort of 3 months, I was doing okay, falling in a lot. I remember doing that, but it was probably 6 months in and we started to do winter time trials, which is a bit of a benchmark event that you just do. And I started to place pretty well, like high up on the list, and that pricked the ears up of the South Australian Sports Institute. And Gordo was keeping in touch with me, and Christine McLaren, and Jason Lane. Christine obviously becoming mine and Nikki's coach over the last 2 years as well. So very much been a part of the whole journey. So it was that, and then I got offered a training agreement to SASI, and that was about 9 months worth of agreement, or 6 months roughly. That was like part-time club, part-time SASI, and then we moved towards a national event. SASI saw enough in me to send me over to nationals, where I qualified for. That was in 2018, and I qualified for the selection week, which was 2 weeks after that. So that got me an invite there. And then that was the first year I made my team in 2018 in the start of, and then went to Bulgaria that year in the pair. So that was my kind of, that was my sporting kind of moment there, where it just was, I just remember it was so exciting. And I also do remember that illumination, or those key conversations with certain people, was so pivotal, like just getting the idea, okay, what do I have to do next? And then I would be like, I had this massive dream and goal, but I was like, okay, all I need to do is kind of half understand that, but just rock up tomorrow and go train, and have good self-awareness and good awareness. And then, because I remember when I first started with the club, I was doing training 3 times a week on water, and I was doing my CrossFit stuff. And then it was maybe a month in, 2 months into that, I'm like, no, I'm not training enough. Like, I'm not on the water enough. And so every day, and then the journey happened to my first team. And then there's the story of being a part of that team for sort of 8 years, and the ins and outs and the ups and downs of elite sport, and making teams, making reserve teams, and, traveling, having a great time, but the grind of it, the depth of it. And it was quite a journey.
I'm interested to find out a little bit more about that, but as we always do, we have to bring it back to about what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
Just a reminder for everyone, this is the DriveAble Podcast. So through all of this journey from the injury, I know it's a cross fracture of your leg, but what level amputation is it?
Yeah, so it's a below knee amputation. So I've got about, probably about, I think maybe 16 centimeters of stump below the knee, 16, 17. So it was real ankle focused, like it was quite ankly, and then they sort of take you up to a bit of a if they can. In my case, they could take me up to a certain point to sort of fit most apparatuses as far as legs and prosthesis. So that was a wild thing to go through.
So you're waking up from recovery and so on and so forth at that point in time. When did driving become something that you kind of thought about, and is it? Am I going to be able to drive at all? Did those thoughts go through your head? When did that process take place?
Massively. I remember even in hospital. So first of all, I forget the exact moments or the exact structure, but I kind of remember that all in an instant. Like, my driver's license got taken away, all my machine tickets. Like, I was a civil contractor, so all my tickets, grader, digger, excavator, everything got taken away. Kind of filling out disability parking forms, that it's a massive thing to go through, because waking up, and I had 2 perfectly good legs 3 days ago, and now my wife's filling out these forms, and my license is gone, and all of that sort of stuff. And I do remember, I'm fortunate in the sense that I remember, I think it was my dad, or just as a parent does, he's like, mate, I'm looking at my right foot right now. He's just like, you got your right foot. Hopefully you shouldn't need too many mods on your car. And I also remember that not being a priority right then and there. Because I was probably, now that I think about it, and even at that point, like I didn't really care to be involved in any sort of mechanics or in charge of a machine. You know what I mean? So there was that feeling. But
walk first, yeah, you walk and then run.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. And then it's such a cool topic that this podcast is on, because then, your mental and physical rehab starts to kick in. And like I said, I was really attacking it and finding opportunities, but having big hurdles and obstacles. And I remember, so I worked for a civil company, and part of my payment structure was a ute. So my ute was a manual, and so they had that kicking around the house for a bit. I was still a while away from getting my license, but I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to drive manual. Like, finding out that I could and can eventually could do it if I'd like. So anyway, just a few little hurdles like that, and a lot of that was also tied into more growth hurdles. Every time something would come up, I would kind of, and that manual thing, I enjoy driving. I enjoy full driving and utes. And so I was like, well, it doesn't look like I'll drive manuals, ever again or whatever. And it wasn't a huge deal, but I was like, cool, lucky autos are good. I just remember these conversations I had in my own head. And then, and then I remember, the rehab, going through the rehab and getting to the point where, okay, I want to get my license back. And that was just I was just super keen. So first of all, that my workplace replaced my ute with a smaller one that's an automatic. So I was ready to roll, and I remember being excited about that. And then started to go through the processes of getting the boxes ticked as far as driving tests and stuff like that went. Yeah.
So your rehab and part of it, I'm assuming it was covered under workplace injury, return to work or something like that. So your process would be a little bit different to a lot of people that would listen to this under NDIS.
Yeah.
A lot of people are under NDIS because they're not injured at work.
Yeah.
So your process would be a little bit different, and you would have been knowing how it works probably under as big a word as it is, catastrophic, because you had a limb amputated.
Yeah.
So they would have been working very hard with your employer to see if they can get you back to work. Was the discussions about your license while you were still, like when you're wanting to get it back and really trying it, was it after you discharged? Was it as part of your discharge? Was it before discharge from hospital?
It was after. So I only really spent about a month. I spent 2 weeks in Flinders, and then I spent about 2 weeks at the repat. And then I was in a stable condition that I could go home. But I was very much a daily patient out at MPOT for in their recovery process, in my recovery process. Sorry. So and then I was probably a part of their system, I was in there for a good 18 months. And it was just probably a linear progression as to when that got suggested. I think it might have been me that was like, I wonder, when can we get this sort of going? And, and then eventually I feel like it was maybe a couple of months, 2.5 months after injury. I still hadn't had a prosthetic leg. That was like a scar line was still healing up. It, was told it probably should have healed up by that point. So there was this like really desire to get mobile again. And then it was kind of initiated through that. And then very fortunate enough, everyone's journey is different, and the system that I was a part of was super supportive, and it wasn't as complex as some other people with certain disabilities or impairments. And, I was able to go for a couple of driving tests, show I was competent. That I remember they're like, do we want to go down the manual route? And I was just like, mate, I'm all good. Like, I'll just drive this little red ute that I've got at home. And
So the temptation to drive a manual, did you ever look at doing that, or have you just kept it as an automatic license because you proved that, tick that off, automatic cars are good, Did you ever go and explore it again, or any of your other tickets again?
I haven't, no. So like I will, whether or not I can legally say this or not. So we have some property where I have actually driven a manual
You
on
on
before.
private property is
Yeah.
private, and
Yeah.
you're allowed to drive anything on private property,
Yeah.
from
So
kids
we got
driving tractors to kids driving, the farm ute. That's allowed
yeah.
on private property. So share away.
Yeah, well, that is funnily enough, I was a kid learning to drive a manual on that property as a not too young kid, but with dad sitting in the passenger seat, and so I was in that property, the same property that I was like, stuff it, let's give it a go. I'm not going to hit anything. We're in a big paddock, and like it was fine, completely could do it. But I guess it was just like if I was a full car head, like I could see myself really wanting to, but I was like. Or if I was born, 30 years ago, there was more manuals around. Like, it was more probably the fact that probably 98% of cars are automatic nowadays. And it was like, cool, I'm good. And I just remember
Your timing was part of that transition, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. And so that just felt right. As far as my tickets went, that was another, like I absolutely wasn't ready to even look at a machine for probably a couple years. Like,
is that a mental health thing?
Yeah.
PTSD, or is
Yeah.
it a
For sure. Yeah, definitely in that PTSD, mental health kind of area, how it would make me feel. Like I couldn't look at people with high-vis clothes. Like it was really triggering, and but then also had that awareness to be like, okay, like this is an issue because like where I want to live a big happy life. So then went through the right the right things about like the right processes to be able to get my confidence back. And one of them was when I got my license. Like one of them was like, oh, I've got freedom again. I can drive a vehicle. Like there was just parts of that felt really confident building. And I just remember like my routine, like when I got that license back, it was just like incredible. So my parents moved down, like I was 28, so no baby, but they moved down and my dad was my wheels for like 6 months and 4 or 5 months. Like,
how was that? I don't want to cut you off because I'm intrigued, but I actually wanted to ask you this question. What was that like? I was going to ask what were taxis like and what was that like? But your dad's moved back, into your place or your house
just
sharing or whatever?
A semaphore caravan park for about 5-6
months. Yeah, parents if we've done 100 episodes, parents are amazing. Parents do such amazing things for their kids. Shout out to all parents that are out there. So he's living in the Semaphore Caravan Park.
Yep.
And he's your wheels. He's picking you up, taking you places, doing all that.
Yeah.
What was that like as a 28-year-old?
Yeah, him and mum just down here and mate, like I'm so grateful. There's so many things that have happened because of the accident that I'm like so grateful for. And like to be a 28-year-old and getting to connect, I was well connected with my parents anyway and have a beautiful relationship with them. But like getting to hang with my dad, even though his freaking driving is annoying, but I just remember being in just traffic, just like going to rehab every day and be like, I just can't, like this guy can go a bit faster, surely, But
he's from the country, is he? He's got a different driving style to you.
Yeah, just a little bit more. I don't know. That thing doesn't get above 1,500 revs. I'm pretty sure it just turtles down the road, but no, it was just the connection piece, that you got to spend with your parents and that level of care and there's certain points in your life that you really realize what your parents do for you and how much they love you. And as a kid, you kind of forget that because you've grown up and your memory doesn't span that long. But when it happens at an older age, and then when I started having my own kids and you feel the love for your own kids and you connect that with the love that your parents have for you, it grows again or your awareness of it grows again. So it was cool. It was such a cool experience. And yeah, like I didn't have to catch many taxis. I mean, I caught my fair share, don't get me wrong, but mum and dad were there for a really good chunk. One of the things was about they were going to stay there until I got my license back. So yeah.
Yeah. So you had to prove that you could drive an auto, which I'm assuming was pretty easy because you're the right legs, no issues. What about getting in and out at that stage, and getting out of the car and moving around? Because it's not just controlling the steering wheel and controlling the accelerator. You've got to actually get into rehab or get into the shop or get into Bunnings or whatever you want to do. And where were you up to at that stage? Did you have a wheelchair? Did you have a half a prosthetic, like
Yep.
a pretty chunky prosthetic, or
Yep.
what was happening, or were people getting a wheelchair out for you?
Almost a bit of both or everything. Like I had, so the car I had was a ute, like a 2-door ute, open cab, so you could, and it was really handy because it was close. Like if you can imagine, if I open the door, the cab's
behind the glass behind your head. Yeah.
Yes, just there. Like it's just there. So a lot of that point was crutches and wheelchair, and so I could. And also getting reasonably fit. I was pretty confident hopping, especially I could just hold the car, so hop and whatnot. Probably so that actually worked well, and I had that little ute for a long time until I was pretty up and running with my leg. But I do remember like a couple of things, like it was a 2-wheel drive ute, very low. So low cars are actually a pain in the bum. Like they're too low to get in for me, and especially if I'm using. So actually, and I've got a ute out there at the moment, just not a jacked up ute, but just a normal standard 4-wheel drive height. It's actually really good for me. I'm reasonably tall, so I'm just in. I don't have to drop or lift. So I found that as I navigated through and purchased a car, and then also like. Getting comfortable driving. I mean, when I started using my prosthetic, I just couldn't drive. Well, I would always take it off. I'd take it off when I'm sitting, and so being able to put it somewhere, my stump comfy somewhere that's not in the way of anything in my car. I know it seems a bit weird, but I'll make comment if I get in any car, and I've had the privilege to drive a few cool cars over the last couple of years just for different companies or whatnot. And I'll make a comment every time. I'm like, yeah, this is comfortable. I can put my stump here, on the rest or whatever. It's a funny little thing that I always look for in a car. But
you still take it off now?
Yeah, I still take it off. Yeah, probably not for like 20-minute drives, but like anything longer. Like if I'm driving to work from here, I'll probably keep it on. Actually, still up 50-50 to be honest, actually, yeah.
Is that what's the reason behind that? Help me unpack that one, because that's one that I've been doing this for years and years, and I do know that some people take it off. The sweatiness is one, but what's your reason for still taking it off now for anything that's over 15 minutes or
it would be comfort and sweatiness. It's almost like if I get in the car and I've got Crocs on, or generally the rowing lifestyle, you wear slides and socks and Crocs, like it's because you're in and out of the boat. I'll kick my shoes off in the same way I'll take my stump off, like because it's just more comfortable, and especially when I was rowing a lot, like I've noticed a big drop off in the last 6 months. Haven't been rowing, my stump would get sore, so that stump management, especially early, was really. I found that line a few times and unfortunately went over it and couldn't use legs for weeks on end. But the last 5-6 years have been fine, but. And so part of that was also like managing it with rest. Like, so rest would be out, like air it out, like get it out. And so I think that habit just kicked in. And so it's a couple of those reasons, managing it with rest. Yeah.
I want to ask you one more question. Yeah. When you're sitting in your chair right now, you've got your foot flat on the floor. Yeah. Yep. So your stump's pushing down into the entire socket.
Yep.
When you're sitting in a car, your leg's out in front of you and you're resting on the heel. Is that something to do with it, with the lever actions of being inside of the stump at all? Is it discomforting at the top of the prosthetic at the very rollover edge? Does it dig into the top of your calf and those type of things? Just unpack it a bit more.
Yeah, it's probably more like, regardless of angle, both angles are both as annoying behind my knee. So do you know what I mean? Like behind my knee, I do get some ingrowns on the front of the knee, like the shin, and like that's just from time to time. They're random, but generally speaking, it's that bunching up behind the knee when you're sitting or driving. That's the uncomfortable bit, and then you can just relieve it by as quick as leg off and then stump straight. And it's like you've got your, effectively your legs out. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for unpacking that for us. Like, we don't know who listens to this. Someone might be really early on and going, "Oh, I can take it off. I didn't know I could take it off. Yeah, that might change my world."
I love that.
Yeah. So who knows what somebody might get it for, and I really thank you for sharing that. Everyone's individual. Yeah. Just because you take it off doesn't mean that you have to take it off either. So that's great. So how long post-injury do you think it was that you got your freedom and independence that you spoke about through the car?
Yeah, I've got a feeling from memory, I feel like mum and dad stayed down with us for like 5 to 6 months, and it was right around the time that I got my license. So
Yeah.
it was around then. And by that point, I remember across a few different fronts, I had a good routine, like a few things had lined up, like routine was pretty set, environments were pretty set. I was trained, like rehab, found CrossFit, and found a few things that were my daily routines. Like I wasn't obviously working, so no kids. It was like I was rehabbing every day. I was then probably going to train again at CrossFit, and then I started to do a business marketing diploma at TAFE. And so just to purely because I was like, I've still got a bit of rehab to do, but I'm going to get bored, so I had to kind of do something as well, and that was perfect. And everything I would do though, like anything, I started to get my freedom back, like with the car. But the first things were like, I'd just get in my car and just drive down the coast. And I wouldn't really go anywhere. I'd just come back because and then I started to go to certain cafes. My coffee drinking addiction happened then. Like I never really drank coffee until I like started to do this, and now I'm obsessed. But that whole feeling of getting familiar with your environment is such a big thing, that like, so you're going through you're going through stuff like, all right, when I get out of the car, I've either got my prosthetic on or my crutches or my wheelchair, people are going to look at me. So like every time is that like feeling of like, okay, am I ready for this? All right, cool, hop out, like sweet. And so that's why I would usually stick to the same things. For like because they're the same cafe owners or the same whatever. And then so that the car gave me this vehicle to be able to do that with, literally and figuratively. And I just remember it was just this slow grind of self-discovery or self-confidence discovery again for me. And then I remember going camping for my first time. That was another really massive thing for me. I was super scared to be away from my prosthetic liners, and like you set up this system that you never have had to do before around how you clean your stuff and look after yourself. And to go camping for the first time, I was like, knew my heart needed to do it, but it was so scary. And I just did a solo mission to Yorks, swagged. Again, the car delivered that outcome for me, and yeah.
How cool is that? Have you tried surfing again?
I have, yes. I have tried surfing. Yep, a fair bit. Probably, yeah, up a massive chunk of times. I got a funny story actually. I surfed 2 weeks ago in Manly and lost my leg in the water. So long story. I was fully lost for like 15 minutes. Like I was overhead high, like depth. I'm like, guys, stop looking. It's gone. Like there's no way we're fine. It'll sink. And then anyway, there was enough people on the shore. It kind of must have bumbled along the bottom, and then it turned up. It hit one of the girls in the leg, and so that happened. I was very happy because it would have been a very expensive surf lesson otherwise. But
yeah. Well, one of the fascinating interview we did with parasurfing with the team out there at North Manly awesome. Doing parasurfing. So that was pretty cool, that interview. So if you want to know about parasurfing, make sure you go back and search that in the podcast search bar. Hey, mate, I could talk to you. You tell a fantastic story, and I really appreciate you coming on here. But I've got this poster in the background from the day that I tried some parasports. I don't have a disability, but I'm trying to build my understanding, build my awareness of some of the equipment and things like that going into cars and so forth. So I went out and tried and gave basketball a go and badminton a go and stuff like that in a wheelchair, and terrible, just putting it out. But let's talk about how, maybe even driving, but where are you up to now? What have you done post gold medals?
Yep.
And post Paralympics and world champs?
Yeah. So, it's almost come full circle in a way of, I had a couple of months off after Paris and all of that, and then put my hat in the ring for a role at SASI. And I guess to give a bit of a landscape shot is there's been a really big federal funding boost. They're calling it the Para Uplift through national sporting organisations and also national institutes around the country. It's something that our country, to hasn't seen before to the volume. And I guess it was like right timing, perfect timing for me I knew I was done with Paris. And then, so this role came up at SASI, at South Australian Sports Institute. And the role description is talent ID and transfer coach. And essentially what that means is we've got this unit structure that we're building with about 5 to 6 full-time staff, and I'm one of them. And Petricola as unit lead is one. We've got a physio classifier. We're looking for a wheelchair specialist / basketball coach. We've got a general preparation coach. We've got some athletics scope there. We've got some swimming scope there. So, long story short, for the first time ever in the capacity of this anyway, the country and for us here in South Australia, we really are going on a massive journey towards that Brisbane 32 and trying to create the biggest team and most successful team that Australia has done. And that really starts with searching, so talent searching, and supporting, whether that be through just more initiatives or lowering barriers and creating more opportunity. And that's the spaces that we're really looking in at SASI now. So I've been in the role for 3 months, and it's a little bit of like the cart before the horse, because this funding kind of got dropped, and there was really no structure there. So even nationally, everyone's like, whoa, there's no structure. So it's like, if you had a 12-month process to kind of get your structure and then funding drop, but the way that federal funding works, it doesn't work like that always. So
I work in the NDIS, everyone.
Yeah,
and we're only just starting to fix it now,
and that's
been 10 years. So
wow.
Big money dump.
Yep.
And here we are now going, oh, this doesn't quite work the way that it should. But anyway, that's another story for another podcast. Let's get back to you and your money dump and what you're doing from the government's generosity in regards to getting people ready for the Paralympics. Are we talking Brisbane, or are we talking it's LA beforehand, isn't it? Is that where it is in 28?
Yeah, we're talking both. Like to be honest, the funding structure is for 2 years, so that they want to see, and we want to see some goals kicked and some runs on the board in the form of people making teams, but also bigger than that, in the form of really good strategies and structures in place that can be followed through. And I think we can prove ourselves that this thing's going to be a sustainable asset and doing well. So and so in that is obviously we've got LA first, we've got and then we've got Brisbane, and if we get it right early, the development of athletes and para athletes in general, look, it's not as long sometimes as able bodies. Like, I'm a great example. I made my first team after picking up an all 18 months beforehand. I wasn't world competitive, but I made my first team fair and square. So the trajectory can be quicker, but it's really about putting some good practices in place. And so we want to, and in the past, say where the funding would pick people up in this talent ID space would be quite advanced. The people would be quite, advanced and kind of ready for the picking. We're really aware if we want to build the triangle, we really need to build our base. And so that's community sport. That's getting as many people competing and involved in para sport as we can. So we've got some really cool programs that we're going to start running in the next month and start learning a little bit and trying to find a sweet spot with all of that. But it's a super exciting thing. Like, if we, we're just going to try and, over the next couple of years, try and get as many people categorized. That's a bit of a high performance strategy term. It's essentially on scholarship. It just means they're moving along the performance pathway as we can. And then that hopefully turns into making teams and we build it from there.
I'm an absolute sport nut. I check out for 2 weeks when the Olympics and Paralympics are on, probably 3-4 weeks actually. I'm hard to find. I'm always in front of the telly. So I'm super excited for what's ahead for you and all the people that you're going to connect with. I really, really am. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a break for our sponsors, and we'll be right back to wind up the interview in a minute.
Williams Occupational Therapy focus their attention on helping people with their mobility needs. From driving to wheelchairs, Williams OT provides help to get people mobile.
Jed, mate, it's been a fascinating chat with you. And I think before I went into the break, I said I could chat with you forever. I could chat to you forever. We haven't even unpacked your actual Paralympic journey. We've talked about all the things that got you there and all the things after. We could probably save that for another interview, but just look him up on the internet, everybody. It's all out there. We've got to keep it to something that people can listen to and actually get out of their car and go into work, because I'm pretty sure they won't want to stop and they'll want to keep listening to you. You hold a room beautifully.
Thank you, mate.
The last thing that we ask everybody is one final question to wrap it all up. What's something that you remember about your car? And now it can be pre-injury or post-injury or getting back into it. What's a journey or something that you've used your car for that means something to you? Because we know that it's more than just getting from A to B. It's a real meaningful thing, driving. So what's something for you?
Love it, mate. I briefly did touch on it before when we were talking through the journey piece, but so the steps through getting my license back, driving the car around, getting to a point of my mental and physical rehabilitation where I distinctively remember feeling not quite right. There was something, and I remember this self-analysis. I'm going, cool, like I'm eating really well, feeling there's so many good things, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was, and had deep conversation with my wife, myself, my family, like just in a very investigative way. And I just remember clicking and going, I have lost like all self-confidence. Like I remember to be thinking back when I had two legs, and I was like a normal amount of confidence in a person, like I think we all need a healthy level of confidence to be able to shake a hand, say hello, be comfortable in a situation. Like I'd lost all of that, and I put it down to very simply just I've lost all my self-confidence for whatever reason. That the tags of being disabled, the tags of being an amputee, all of this that I was computing I just suppressed that level of confidence. And I remember going, I need to fix this. Like, what can I do to fix this? And one of the things was going camping. I spoke about it before. I was like, I used to love going camping. I used to swag by myself, go surfing, but I felt the thought of me doing something like that scared me. And I was like, okay, well, that's an indicator that I need to do that thing. Like, I just remember being like, it scared me. And so, I remember and I actually love it, like a late 90s red Toyota Hilux 2-door. And I kind of like old, crappy utes like that. Anyway, I had that, and I just chucked the swag in the back, and scared, I just went to York's, rolled the swag out, had a fire, made dinner, did all the stuff that I used to love doing. And I was so scared the whole time, just felt so uncomfortable. But then doing that, having the vehicle to go do that with, and then come home, like it was that post, when I got back and I digested it and spoke about it with my wife, like that was a real key point. I talk to that story all the time around how I found my self-confidence back. And it wasn't just that. There was a few big things that I did, but that was basically the first one. I remember being like, I'll do that first, and then we'll see how I feel. And it was because, the mobility that a car gives you and the freedom that a car gives you to explore, especially our friggin' incredible country. Like I love driving around our country. And so it gave me that. I love full driving. Always have. I grew up full driving down the southeast, and my parents lived down at Beachport. So having an accessible car that can get everywhere is
There's a few beaches to explore down there in a full drive.
Yeah, there is. So yeah, man, I could talk forever, and that was my one little nugget around one story. But yeah, it's been fun. I really appreciate today.
Oh, mate, it's been fantastic. It really is. And mate, I am sure people are going to want to reach out to you. So how can they do that? Where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me. Instagram is probably the easiest way. You can just type in Jed Altschwager there, or my handle officially is New Boot Old Jeans, which is a bit of a funny one from back in the day. And I just thought, what the heck, we're going to stick with it. And I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, again, Jed Altschwager. There's not too many Jed Altschwagers. So, and yeah, that's probably the best way. And I do encourage reaching out. I reached out, especially early days through my accident injury, and I reached out and DM'd many people all over the world. Some would write back, some wouldn't. That's cool. But I really did use the power of social media to connect and learn new things. So
if somebody's like got a little bit of talent and they're going, oh, I wonder if I could make the Paralympics.
Yeah.
What should they do?
Yeah, that's unreal. We've just, first and foremost, if you're in South Australia, type in Google SASI Para Unit, or go to the South Australian Sports Institute website. If you type in SASI Para Unit, have a little read of the information. You'll see a pretty little photo of me on there somewhere. There'll be a button that says athlete. You click that button, you fill the Microsoft Forms out. It gives just a little bit of blurb and detail about yourself. And then we'll be in touch within the next sort of 7 to 10 days.
And I'm sure it's probably something similar no matter what state you're in, whether it's Victorian Institute of Sport or Queensland or New South Wales, yeah?
Yep, it's getting there. Like I'm competitive, so I'm proud to say that South Australia, we are a little bit in front of the other states, and that's just because it's a very we've moved quickly and just with our appointments. But every state's doing an incredible role with this uplift. So anyone anywhere in the country, reach out to your institutes around the Para Uplift, see what's going on. There's some exciting things to come. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait I can't wait for 28 and 32 and have my bum on a couch somewhere and watching all the talent that you'll be harvesting and getting them ready for, mate. It's been a fantastic interview. It's been, I love how you've connected it, and I'm sure people, whether it's been an amputation or not, will find something relative to them, and they will really value this interview. And that's why we do it. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. And any of those sports on the back there, I don't know if you can see if you're on YouTube, make sure you look at us on YouTube. I've got the Parasport poster behind me. So we're all over it as well. We're encouraging it as well. And if we've got anybody that we can identify, we'll send them your way, Jed. All right.
Love it. Thank you, Brad. It's been good, mate. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks, mate. See ya.
Catch ya.
Driving Well Occupational Therapy loves working with people of all ages and with all kinds of medical conditions to safely give them the opportunity to explore their driving goals. As we wind up this episode, please remember that the advice provided in this podcast is general in nature. For your specific situation, you will need to get in contact with your local OT, vehicle modifier or mobility dealer and set yourself up with an assessment or trial. Trials really do put you in that driver's seat.
If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show notes, or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. Just search @DriveAble Podcast for more information.